Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 7 of What If Naruto Was a League Summoner. If you guys enjoy this What If, and want to see part 8 of it, comment down below and let me know. I have created a playlist for this What If, where you can find all the previous parts, link is in the description. And go ahead and check out other What Ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. About a week after the raiding game against Razor Phoenix and his peerage, a few days after Ashiya had acquired a little sprite dragon as her first familiar, and Naruto having Yumi to officially become his, their school life at Kuo had more or less returned to normal. Meaning that he was back to his days of sitting in class with absolutely nothing to do, other than worrying about league-related stuff, while acting like he was listening to some dull-looking teacher's lecture on tedious things he would most likely never going to use in his life as a devil. It really couldn't get more normal than that, at least for him. At least now he had something else to look forward to as well, aside from hours of grinding for LP in his most favorite game, which had become his life with how it related to his power, Runeterra Arsenal. But just like it had always been from the day he became a devil, things started to get really interesting real quick. After they had finished having lunch in their classroom, Naruto and Ashiya quickly gathered their belongings and made their ways to the old school building to go to the clubroom of the Occult Research Club, their main base of operation with their master Ria's Gremory and the rest of her peerage. If nothing happened, they would play League till it's time for them to go home. "We're here," the blonde announced as she stepped into the clubroom, with Ashiya walking beside him and Yumi riding on book like a flying carpet with a proud smile on her face. From what Ahari had told him, the cat was even prouder than before. She took a lot of pride in being the first cat to ever become the familiar of a summoner, and had been bragging about it to any champion residing within the institute to the point it became annoying for some of them. Naruto. He just didn't care about it all that much. He was just glad that Yumi was enjoying herself being his familiar. Come on in you three. Rias greeted them with a bright smile, and the blonde saw that his master and Akeno weren't the only ones in the clubroom, as there were also the student council's president and the heiress of the Citri Devil household, Sona Citri, and her queen Tsubaki Shinra, sitting on the sofa with her across from Rias. Standing behind them were the infamous leader of the perverted trio Issei Hidu, and a male student Naruto had seen once before in the student council, a young man who had recently become the new secretary of the organization, with short blonde hair and gray eyes. He wore the Kuo Academy boys' school uniform, albeit without the blazer, and his sleeves were both rolled up. "Good afternoon, Sona Kaichu, Tsubaki-senpai." The blonde greeted the two girls with his trademark grin as Ashiya followed his example and Yumi followed him into the room, with the two male students looking at her in amazement. "Good to see you are still with us today, Uzumaki-kun." Sona greeted him with a small smile as she drank the tea served by Akeno. "So you are that person who has been giving Sona Kaichu and everyone so much trouble?" The other male student said with a look of displeasure on his face. "Do I know you?" Naruto asked blankly in response. Instead of answering his question, he turned to Rias and asked her, "Oh, so you didn't tell him about us, Ria-senpai?" "It's quite understandable because Uzumaki-kun is not at school that often," Sona stated calmly, making the blonde chuckle sheepishly before moving further into the room. "Plus, it wasn't that long ago that you became a devil, so his reaction is perfectly normal." "Naruto, these two are Sona's new servants. It's tradition for us to introduce our new servants to each other after they have gotten used to their new life," Rias explained before gesturing her hand toward Issei and Saji. "You already know Hidu-kun, your classmate, well Genshu Saji here is her new work." "I see. Pleased to meet you. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Ria's Gremory-senpai's pawn." Naruto nodded his head and introduced himself to them in a friendly manner. "I'm Ashiya Argento. Please get along with me." Ashiya also introduced herself and offered her hand out. Instantly the two boys reacted. Yes, please get along well, Ashiya-chan. If it is a cute and beautiful blonde foreigner like you, then I am definitely very happy." Saying that, the two ran toward Ashiya, looking to be the first to shake, touch her hand, but neither wanted their colleague to take the lead. Both tried to intercept each other, pushing and shoving each other, while making their way toward the beautiful nun, making her look at them nervously. Naruto, meanwhile, didn't look amused and decided to step in between the two male students and Ashiya, pushing gently her to stand behind with one hand, while giving Issei and Saji a firm look. "Ha, it appears that you are having some difficult time, Sona," Rias said in satisfaction as she leaned back and drank her tea. "Lucky you, Rias, to be able to find such a reliable servant in Uzumaki-kun," Sona said with a sigh. "I think I will keep my distance, if I were either of you." Naruto spoke up blankly to the two before adding, directing his gaze at a certain pervert, "Especially you, Hidu. I noticed the way you stared at Ashiya in class and I don't like it." "Well, what the hell is wrong with it? She's cute, so of course a man can't stop looking at her," Issei exclaimed, looking furious. From what Naruto had heard, Issei was a pervert, and he wasn't ashamed about it. It is bad enough that a handsome guy like you is around all these beautiful and big-breasted ladies, and you even want to keep this beautiful blonde just for yourself too. Don't think so highly of yourself, damn pretty boy. Even though I'm a new devil, it took HighSchool all of her pawn pieces to reincarnate me, so I definitely won't lose to you. Saying that, he summoned a red dragon-like gauntlet with a green jewel and 2 golden spikes on his left arm. Oh, impressive, what is that? Naruto asked, faking an amazed smile. This is my sacred gear, boosted gear. Issei announced, making Ria's whiten her eyes in surprise. So that's why the boy would have taken her the entire set of pawns, to revive just like Naruto. He was the holder of boosted gear, also known as the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet. It was listed as one of the original 13 Longinus with the spirit of the Welsh dragon residing within it. It has a power, to allow me to surpass the powers of even God, so you better watch out from now. Ah, I see. Naruto nodded his head in understanding before gesturing his hand to Yumi. Since you have shown me your sacred gear, I guess it's only fair for me to do the same. Meet Yumi the magical cat and her companion, Book. Yumi held her head up, and smiled proudly in response, causing a tick mark to appear on Issei's forehead. Are you comparing my god-killing sacred gear with a freaking pussy circa? Before he could finish, Naruto had summoned his silver revolver blaze, and pointed it between Issei's forehead, which happened faster than he could blink his eye. The pervert gulped nervously as Naruto pulled back the hammer of his weapon and Yumi gave him a disapproving look, while hissing at him. Finish that sentence now, I dare you. Naruto taunted but in a deadly calm tone, do not insult my cat, ever. Got it. Issei could only nod his head dumbly, before taking a few steps back after Naruto had removed his gun from his forehead, but that didn't stop Yumi from hissing at him in annoyance. Sigh, if you finished embarrassing yourself and our group, Issei-kun, then please keep your mouth shut for the rest of this conversation, if you don't have anything else logical to say. Sona spoke up finally with a heavy sigh, making Issei shudder nervously, before she looked at Naruto. My deepest apology for my servant behavior, Uzumaki-kun, Yumi-san. As he said, he's just a new devil, so he did not have as much experience as you did, so he still has a somewhat rude attitude toward everyone around him. I will make sure that he won't repeat the same mistake ever again. Her voice was perfectly calm as she said that, and it made Issei shudder nervously, before Sona turned back to Rias and asked her, anyway Rias, our school will be hosting the ball tournament in a few days. Will you and your club participate? Because he was a transferred student, Naruto had never actually participated in the famous ball tournament of Kuo Academy. Overall, it was an event where they was going to play ball-related sports, such as baseball, soccer, basketball, tennis and many sports like that. Those matches included contests between classes, genders and obviously, there were also some between clubs, and that, including the Occult Research Club. He had heard a lot of good things about it, so to say he was looking forward to participating with everyone in the club would be an understatement. Of course we will, Sona. Rias answered with a confident smile. I look forward to being paired up with the student council, so you better prepare your servants to taste defeat for the 3rd time in 3 years. Big words coming from someone who lost to me in every gender ball games we have ever participated in. Sona smiled fearlessly in return as she tilted her glasses up with her ring finger, a blue shore radiating around her. Don't worry Rias, there's a first time for everything. I'm sure that you might be able to put on a good show this year. Try to keep up, Sona. Rias replied with her own crimson aura, showing her rival childhood friend her own conviction. Naruto could understand immediately that the two heirs were very close, with such strong but seemingly friendly rivalry with each other. Well, I think this is enough for the introduction of our new members. So, forgive us for now. Sona spoke as she stood up with Tsubaki, preparing to leave with her servants. There is also a document that I want to finish during lunch, so it's best that I get back to it now. Before she left, she turned to Naruto, and told him with a firm look, Uzumaki-kun, weapons are prohibited here during school time, so please refrain yourself from summoning, and pointing them at your fellow students. Of course. The blonde grinned, before he bowed his head to Sona with Ashia, doing the same thing as she left the Occult Research Club with her servants. It was after the four had left Rias decided to say to her 2 new servants while smiling. Naruto, Ashia, try to get along with Saji-kun and Ice-kun. I know that Sona's pawn is an interesting individual, but you 3 are classmates who study under the same school and enjoy the same school life, so try to not fight him whenever he is at it, understand? I understand, President-san. Ashia replied with a nod. As long as he doesn't go anywhere near Ashia or try doing something funny, sure. Naruto nodded his head, before he walked to his usual PC. Alright Ashia, let's play some League. Yes, Naruto-san. Ashia beamed brightly, and took her seat beside him. It did not take it long for them to start queuing up, with Rias and Akeno coming over to watch them play and Yumi sitting on the couch, to enjoy some sweet desserts with Kaneko. Alright. I got this. Naruto shouted and then ran to the other side of the pitch to catch the baseball ball with his gloved hand. Nice. Good work, Naruto. Ria shouted to him with a smile on her face, and showed him a thumb as a sign of acknowledgement. The Occult Research Club was currently training for the upcoming ball tournament, starting out with baseball. "Keep it up, and we are going to win this whole tournament," said Riaz with a firm voice. Everyone could see that she was in high spirit. Because what the clubs actually play would be announced on the day of the event, so in conclusion, they were practicing for team sports that were likely to arise. Batting practice is fine now. If it's baseball, then Kaneko will be our fourth batter. Alright, the small girl with super strength nodded and replied shortly. No one was going to complain about that. Yufufufu, it seems our president is in high spirits, said Akeno-san while giggling, coming to stand next to Naruto as he walked back to his position. I think she just hates to lose, that's all. Naruto answered with a shrug, having noticed her competitive nature. She had always had that burning look in her eyes whenever she was about to enter a competition. Of course, there's no way that we can lose unless we make a lot of mistakes. As devils who were fundamentally stronger than most humans, on the sports day they would have to hold back a lot, especially him and Kaneko, who were both physically much stronger than even normal devils. Naturally, they wouldn't have a hard match at all, but on the flip side, they had to learn the rules and features of the games they could be playing, and that had been the reason why Riaz had taken them out to practice. The only one that should have the most problem in the physical department, of course, would be Ashia. Even if your brain knows, your body has to as well. Riaz declared before hit another ball that was tossed toward her by Yumi, who used her tail to do so, sending it into the air. Ashia, you are on this time. Riaz called to the blonde bishop, who became extremely nervous when she saw the ball flying toward her direction. However, as everyone had expected, Ashia was too slow, so the ball hit the ground and bounced for a few times before going through her legs. Needless to say, her sports sense was below average, and when combined with her clumsiness, Ashia could even trip over nothing while playing sports. Ashia, if you fail to catch it, go fetch it. Riaz gave her order firmly. Yes. She quickly ran after the ball and picked it up before tossing it over to Riaz. Udo, you are up next. Riaz gave the order and hit the ball toward Kiba's direction. Yes, President. Naturally, for the fastest runner and one with the best athletic skills of their group, Kiba was able to catch up to the ball fairly quickly and catch the ball in his gloved hand. Good work. By the way, Naruto-kun, did you know? Akeno suddenly asked as Kiba threw Naruto the ball, so he could return it to their master, while looking at the blonde with a smile. No, what exactly? Recently, President started a manual on love. Akeno answered, smiling knowingly at him. A love manual, the blonde repeated in surprise. Does that mean she has found someone that she has found someone she likes? He couldn't help but ask, but it's only natural. It was something he should have expected. Since Riaz had been released from her marriage engagement with Razor, and from what he had been told, her parents no longer had plans to pair her up with anyone, so she was now free to choose, and to date whoever she wanted to be with. If that person was his master's decision, then he would wholeheartedly support her and him. Yufufufu. Naruto-kun, you don't have to worry about it. It'll be alright. It's impossible for President to have a lover while you're still around. Akeno reassured him with a pat on his shoulder, making the blonde turn to her in confusion. Yufufu, it's also her first time, so you'll be in trouble, Naruto-kun. What do you mean by that? You will see soon enough, Naruto-kun. Well, I guess I should return to my position now. Akeno smiled at him, before she left and returned to her spot on the other side of the field, leaving Naruto to stand there in confusion, while scratching the back of his head. Okay. Let's continue, everyone. With that order from Riaz, Naruto wasted no time to run back to his position. Bang. Bang. The sound of the start of the infamous ball tournament echoed throughout the school. Naruto was currently doing some light exercise with Ashia, but he couldn't help but notice that some dark clouds were approaching. He remembered the weather broadcast earlier that morning, telling the audiences that it was going to rain in the evening, so the blonde seriously hoped that it wasn't going to rain until the tournament had finished, or else everyone would be very disappointed. There was a chance that they would also have to compete while it was raining. Sakamoto-kun of the Manga Research Club, Hashioka-sensei is calling you. Please come to the staff room immediately. The PA speakers, which had been placed throughout the school, were making announcements endlessly. Because the club matches were at the end, they didn't have to worry about it till the end of the day. First, there were the matches between classes. His class was going to compete in football, but Naruto didn't get to participate, much to the disappointment of the girls who idolized him, more than half of the entire school, actually. It was mostly because his class had already had a football team, and they had been training with each other since the start of the school year, so him joining them would only hold them back. Kiba and Kaneko, meanwhile, would participate in their class matches, which was baseball and table tennis. Knowing Kiba, table tennis should not be something that could trouble him, even if his opponent was going to be the representative of their school. After that there were matches amongst genders, and then after lunch, the club matches would start. Hey, we're back. After 10 minutes, the two great Wani-sama of Kuo Academy came back to them while smiling fearlessly. We have won this match already, Riaz declared. So what game are we playing then? Naruto couldn't help but ask. Dodgeball. Kaichu-sama. Come on. You can do it. Beat Ria-senpai, screamed Genshu Usagi as loudly as he possibly could, cheering for Sona Citri from behind the tennis court fence. She was the one who was representing the girls of her class, to compete against other senior girls. She was holding her ground quite well in this tennis match, hitting the ball with amazing strength and flawless skills, but her opponent, Ria's Gremory, was quite good as well. Ria-sama. Kia. Around him, several fangirls were shouting in a shrill voice, while Issei Hidu was waving a flag with the name tag of the student council on it. Although, everyone was still wondering how the hell a guy like him was able to get accepted into the student council, many had come to the conclusion that with him in the group, the strict Sona Citri could personally keep an eye on him, and made sure that he would cease committing lecherous behaviors. So far, it seemed to work out the way they had expected it to, but still didn't make them dislike him any less. It's so wonderful that we can see a match between high-class devils in a place like this, isn't it? Momo asked while enjoying the match beside Naruto, making him nod his head in agreement. Yeah, our masters are really giving it their all. Naruto nodded his head in agreement before he felt something cold pressing against his cheek, and turned his head to see Momo holding a bottle of energy drink. This is for you, she told him, and Naruto took the bottle from her with a wide grin. I know that you deserve a lot more, but please take it for now. It's a thank you gift. For what? The blonde couldn't help but ask. For saving Ria-senpai from her marriage engagement. Momo told him I haven't had the chance to talk to you about your match against Razor Phoenix and his peerage, have I? Well, I watched the whole of it, rooting for you and everyone. I take that Razor's popularity with girls outside his peerage or negative. Naruto chuckled humorously as he opened the bottle of energy drink and drank some from it. Momo just shrugged as she replied to his statement. No one likes him, actually, even Sona Kaichu has opinions about men like him. He's very similar to her fiancé. Wait, Kaichu has a fiancé. Had, Naruto-kun. She broke off their engagement by beating him in a game of chess. My master doesn't want to marry someone who isn't smarter than her. Naruto made a face of amazement, but he wasn't surprised. Of course, someone who had never shown to take anything lightly and appeared to be a very strict and intelligent young woman would want to marry someone like that. From what I heard, her victory actually inspirited Ria-senpai to challenge her fiancé. Well, it worked out well for her, didn't it? Yes, thanks to you, Naruto-kun. Momo smiled before she looked away from him, blushing a little as she continued. You were pretty cool, you know, defeating the peerage of Razor Phoenix and the king himself so swiftly and amazingly like that. I was in shock when you summoned Anivia and especially Aurelian Soul. It was so scary, but amazing at the same time. Yeah, thanks, Momo-chan. The blonde could only respond like that while scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. Having Momo praising him feel very different from having his master Rias doing it. With Rias, it had been a sense of pride when she thanked him and everyone of her peerage for fighting for her freedom, which he guessed had been natural because she was his master, and they were her servants. But with Momo, he couldn't help but feel strangely nice and very happy. Must be because she was a servant of a high-class devil like him too. It must feel amazing for you, to be able to summon the champions of your favorite game and fight alongside them. Momo then said, making Naruto grin in confirmation. He could still remember the joy of summoning his champions for the first time, and getting to know them on a personal level. So you can summon them anytime you want. Yeah. I even made Yumi my familiar. That cute magical cat flying on a book. Momo asked in surprise. She's my favorite champion. I am sure you can meet her later, if you want. Naruto grinned, before he asked you play League 2. Yes, but I have only started playing recently. I see, so what is your main role? Support. ADC, actually. Momo answered with a smile. I am still learning the mechanics of the game though. There are so many things to learn, and I don't even know where to start. Can you teach me how to play it properly later, Naruto-kun? The white-haired beauty asked, looking at Naruto hopefully. Oh well, I don't think I am the person for the job, but... The blonde added quickly when he saw her smile full a little, puffing his chest out and smiling proudly. If you want, then I'd love to give you my knowledge of the game. I will look forward to it, Naruto-kun. With that said, the two then went back to watch the game between their masters. They had now started using trick shots infused with a little bit of magic to catch their opponent off guard. Take this. Shitori style, spin ball. The ball Sona had just hit went rushing towards President, spinning rapidly in the air. You're too naive. Gremory style counter. Ria shouted as she hit it back with her racket, but the ball changed its direction the moment it touched the court for the first time and went down, causing Ria's to miss. 15-30. No, it is Kaichu's point. The girls, who were cheering for Ria's, cried in disappointment. You're doing well, Sona. To be expected from my rival. Ria's admitted with a smirk, gripping the racket's handle tightly in her hand. Yufufu. Rias, you haven't forgotten the promise where the loser has to pay for the udon with all the toppings at Kabushia, have you? Sona asked, smiling slightly. Yes, I haven't. It will be my shame if you taste that before me. Rias grinned and got into position. That's why I will definitely win. Did you know that I have 108 styles of magic ball? I will accept that challenge. I will hit back all the balls that come into my Shitori zone. In the end, the final match between Rias Gremory and Sona Citri lasted so long and went so hard that both of their rackets broke and they both got first places. Of course, normal rackets would break if they were used for intense rallies like that. Everyone, including the referee, had decided that it was a tie, but Rias wanted to win at all costs, so the participants turned to the spectators to ask who the winner was. Sona had a lot of votes, but Occult Research Club still won in the end because they had more famous members in the group and many more fans. After lunch break, it was time for their match against the baseball club. Come on, you guys need to do better than that. Naruto taunted as he dodged a ball coming at him with minimum effort before he jumped in front of Ashia to catch the ball being thrown at her and sent it back to one of their opponents, striking him in the head and knocking him down to eliminate him from the match instantly. It actually wasn't that hard for him to catch the ball, and even Ashia could do it too if she had had a bit more confident because the opponents were throwing it half-heartedly with barely any strength. It was simply because they couldn't hit anyone from the Occult Research Club. Rias Gremory, one of the two great One-Sama of Kuo Academy, the most popular school idol. You couldn't aim for her. Akeno, another girl that was hailed as Great One-Sama, the second most popular school idol. You couldn't aim for her as well. Ashia, the innocent angel and the second most beautiful girls of the second year. She was also a blondie. Couldn't aim for her either. Kaneko, a lowly girl who was their school's mascot. You feel bad if you hit her. Kibayudo, enemy of every male student in this school, but the girls would hate you if you hit him. A target you absolutely must not hit. And last but not least, Naruto Uzumaki himself, the school delinquent who randomly skipped school whenever he felt like it, though his bad boy attitude wasn't actually that bad when you got to know him better, and he was actually quite a nice guy. The girls loved him, so if you aimed for him then the girls would end up hating you for sure. Not to mention that he could easily beat you up later if the rumors about him being a Yakuza was true. There was no way anyone could win against a team like that. Shit. I don't care if I'm hated. You damn perfect. I'm sorry to disturb, Naruto, but can I have a word with you? Oh Sona, I don't think now is a good time to. Hearing Sona's voice, Naruto answered her without noticing a ball flying toward his direction, as one of the members of the baseball club had had enough of handsome guys, and decided to strike down the one with the worst reputations at school. Now, well, he could react to it and catch the ball with his superhuman speed. Doing so from his current position and posture would only show that he wasn't human, but he just couldn't let it hit him and get eliminated from the game so early either. Fortunately enough, before the blonde could finish deciding the second best option, Kiba had jumped in front of him and caught the ball in his hands. Keep your head in the game, Naruto-kun. The smiling knight told Naruto as he landed on the floor with a flip, causing the girls watching the game to squeal and cheer in excitement before he threw the ball at the baseball club's member, striking him down and eliminating him from the game. Nice save, Kiba. Naruto grinned and nodded his head gratefully at the reliable Kibayudo before looking at his master and telling her what's going on by pointing a finger at his champion watch he wore around his left wrist. Rias nodded her head in understanding and gave her club the order to finish the game as quickly as they possibly could. To say it was a dominating victory would be a huge understatement. After the match was over, Rias left with Akeno to receive their rewards for winning. Kiba and Kaneko then went back to their classes to celebrate with their classmates, leaving Naruto and Ashia behind to rest for a bit before heading home. Finding a spot on the bench outside of the old school building, Naruto then took out his phone so he could pretend that he was answering a call, just in case someone saw him and mistook him talking to himself. Ah, sorry about that, Sona. So what's up? Naruto asked as he answered the Maven of the Strings through the telepathic link between them. Ah, it's not a problem at all, Naruto. It's just that I would like to talk to you about your offer, that's all. Ah, have you come to a decision? He couldn't help but ask, smiling a little. Yes, with how Demacia has been recently, your offer isn't something I can easily turn down. The Institute has also given me the permission, as long as I answer the League summon, whenever there's a summoner request for my powers, so I can move to your world and stay with you how I want. That's so good to hear, Sona. The blonde exclaimed excitedly before he decided to tell her, although I have to warn you, my home has run out of spare room, so you will have to stay with Ashia for a few days. Don't worry, Naruto. I don't mind sharing a room with your friend. If anything, I am actually very grateful that she is willing to share a room with me. Well, I am sure you can thank Ashia later. Naruto grinned before he told her, so I think it's best that you start packing. I will summon you as soon as I'm done here. Yes, I understand. Thank you, Naruto. You have no idea how much this means to me. Please don't mention it. Naruto shook his head and then said with a small smile, offering a safe home so you can rest peacefully at night is the least that I can do to help you guys out. It's not that big of a deal to me anyway. Also, if you ever need anything, please feel free to ask me, and I will see what I can do to help you out. I will keep that in mind, Naruto. See you later. See you later, Sona. It was really just another kind of boring, but typical and peaceful week at Kuo Academy. But this would be the last peaceful week that he had for a very, very long time. Putting his hand on the floor of the living room of his house, Naruto gathered his demonic power and activated his sacred gear. In a flash of light, Sona, the maven of the strings and one of the first champions of the League of Legends, appeared before him and his housemates with 2 large suitcases at her sides, looking as radiant and breathtakingly beautiful as he remembered. Her outfit consisted of a beautiful white dress that stopped just below the middle portions of her toned, shapely thighs, giving a generous view to long sexy legs, and showed off her incredibly voluptuous figure, the like of which could rival even that of his master. As usual, she had her long flowing blue hair tied into twin tails, but with a pair of blue ribbons instead of hair ornaments. Greeting, Summoner. Sona spoke through the telepathic link as she lowered her head to Naruto with her hands clapping in front of her thighs. Please raise your head. There's no need for you to bow to me, Sona. Naruto shook his head, and said as he stood up to face her with a large grin on his face. Once she had raised her hand, the blonde then turned to Rias and Ashia, who were both smiling at the blue-haired champion. Allow me to introduce you to my master, Rias Gremory, and one of my best friends, Ashia Argento. President, Ashia, I believe that you know very well who this is. It's a pleasure to meet you in person, Sona. Rias said as she offered the young woman sharing the same name with her childhood friend and rival her hand, allowing her to take it, so they could shake hands with each other. Sona smiled before she lowered her head a little to Rias, and the crimson-haired heiress responded with another friendly smile, remembering very clearly that Sona was mute, and the only one who could hear her magic voice was her summoner. Hello Sona-san. Ashia followed Ria's example and greeted Sona cheerfully as the maven turned to offer the blonde a friendly smile. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Ashia. Sona then turned back to her summoner, and requested him politely. Naruto, can you tell her how grateful I am that she lets me stay with her in her room for the time being? Naruto did not need to hear the whole sentence to know what Sona wanted him to tell Ashia for her, but he let her finish it anyway before saying, with hand reaching up to scratch the back of his head as he told her. Oh yeah, about that Sona. The maven just tilted her head to the side in mild confusion. I don't think you will need to share a room with Ashia anymore, unless of course you prefer to have a roommate. You can choose and have your own room now, I think. He then put a hand on his hips, and turned his head up to look at his new house. Keywords, new house. Rias had told him a few days ago that his house would be renovated soon by the devils of her family, allowing him to carry out his plan of letting some of his champions live with him. It's just that he didn't expect it to become a full-on 6-story building that was literally a mansion in less than a day. Because Naruto remembered when he left his home that morning with Rias and Ashia for the ball tournament, it was still a normal 2-story terrace house that was pretty decent for a family of 3. But he wasn't complaining though. With how many spare rooms he had seen so far, he could house as many champions as he wanted. Sona could have any room she wanted, and set it up however she would want it to be. However, the new house wasn't the only thing that finally came into his life today. It came with an extra. Naruto-sama, Oju-sama, Ashia-san, dinner is ready, informed a beautiful silver-haired maid from the new dining room. Oh, you must be Sona. Pleased to meet you. I'm Graphia Lucifuge, the maid of this residence. She walked out and lowered her head to Sona, who smiled and lowered her head in response to Graphia. Naruto remembered that the Buvel, the Dalmatian family who adopted her when she was young, was a very wealthy one, so Sona must be no stranger to maids. Allow me to help you settle in, Sona-san, and then you can join the others for dinner. With that said, the silver-haired woman walked towards Sona, who lowered her head gratefully to the older woman, before she turned her attention over to Naruto, opening her suitcase with a wave of her hand, before lowering herself down to pick up a very large book, the size of a telephone directory, with glowing markings and the symbol of a building with 3 shining crystals on the front cover. This book is for you, Naruto. Whoa, what is it? He couldn't help but ask as he accepted the book from Sona, sounding a little excited because he could recognize the symbol on the cover to be the crest of the Institute of War, the organization of summoners of Runeterra, of the League of Legends themselves. The Book of Summoner. Very straightforward, isn't it? A scholar at the Institute asked me to give it to you. It contains everything you need to become a full-fledged summoner like those at the Institute. Naruto Wolf whistled in amazement and opened the cover to read the first page of the book, finding the historical contents inside written in Japanese. What language is that? Rias asked in amazement, making Naruto turn his head and look at her in surprise. As if she could read his mind, Sona answered the question in his head. I was told the book was written in a magical runic language that would translate itself only to those we champions acknowledged as our summoners. Even one of us is enough, but because of it others can't read it, and will only see the words inside as what they are. I see. Interesting stuff. Naruto nodded his head in understanding, before he told Rias everything Sona just said to him, making his master nod her head in understanding. After that, Grafia took Sona to her room and helped her settle in, giving Naruto some time to read the Book of Summoner, before they all went to the dining room to enjoy dinner with his parents, with Sona being introduced to them as a distant relative of Ria's who came to Japan to study music. Of course, they were both more than happy to let another beautiful foreign girl stay with their son in their home, nothing out of the ordinary at all, in all honesty. So for the next few days, Naruto's life fell into a slow, somewhat difficult but nonetheless satisfying routine. He would go to Kuo Academy a day, studying like a normal high school student for once, and worked as a devil at night. He played League with Ashia and Rias, whenever he had time to spare, climbing to Silver Eye in just a few days and looking forward to promoting himself to Gold Division before the end of the week. Now that his house had been renovated, having 3 basements in total with one of them being a training area, Naruto no longer had to go to that riverbank near school. He could now train with the masters of Runeterra whenever he wanted, without needing to worry about collateral damages, or being seen by normal humans. Naruto even had HighSchool set up the place with drones, robots and turrets armed to the teeth with Runeterra's most advanced weaponry for real and challenging combat experiences, giving him the chance to prepare for literally anything. And contrary to what Naruto had imagined, having Grafia as his supervisor, the head maid of the Gremory Devil household, didn't take much time to show herself as a great friend, as well as an older sister of sort to everyone in the house, even his parents. Taking care of the residents, and doing most of the housework. Naruto knew that since the moment Grafia moved into this house she had been keeping a close eye on him and his growth, but she had done so expertly, and never actually made him feel uncomfortable about it. Grafia even helped him train to become a stronger devil, teaching him many useful fighting techniques, magic, and also giving him advice on how to properly control his constantly growing demonic power reserve. Reading the Book of Summoner gave Naruto the basic idea of what it meant to be a summoner of the League of Legends. The first 2 chapters of the book summarize the entire history of the League of Legends, going all the way back to its foundation 22 years after the Fifth Rune War, to serve both as a political mediator as well as a dispute settlement organization, in order to prevent the onset of a 6th war that would finish obliterating Runeterra. Naruto had spent a whole night reading and endorsing himself in the stories of those 2 chapters. However, things got even more exciting from the 3rd chapter, which showcased the magic that was used to call forth their chosen champions onto the fields of justice. From reading its description, and after a number of experiments with HighSchool, the 2 of them had come to realize that his Sacred Gear's summoning ability actually acted as a magical waypoint between him, Earth, Runeterra, and the League of Legends, making his ability to summon actually not normal summoning, at least, not in the same way the Institute summoners use their magic. Whenever Naruto summoned his champions, he actually opened the gateway for them to go through, with different champions requiring different, but fixed amounts of demonic power. It also explained why Sona could stay in his world for as long as she wished, with him not having to constantly expend his magical power to keep her in his world. It was also worth noting that, whenever he summoned the weapons of the League's champions, he was actually summoning perfect copies of them using another ability of his Sacred Gear, but he could only do so if the weapons themselves were still in Runeterra. Anything that was taken to Earth when he summoned the champions could not be replicated, because Runeterra Arsenal no longer had the data of said weapons at that point, as the Yordle professor had put it. Nevertheless, although he would always prefer his ability, because the procedure and preparation was far less complicated, and much easier for him to use, the summoning spell wasn't the only thing that Naruto would love to learn and try out later. In the following chapters, the blonde was able to find a number of spells and magic that he believed could be used alongside his Sacred Gear, just like how the Institute's members utilized them alongside the main summoning magic to bring forth their champions. The book made him realize that he had only been summoning his champions as they were, not how they were supposed to be when representing their summoners, so if he could do it, then he would be able to make use of the full powers of his Sacred Gear. His powers were still a mystery to him, even after getting the help of a smart mind like HighSchool. Only time would tell what else could he do. Naruto, what would you like for lunch? A soft voice broke Naruto out of his train of thoughts, and the blonde found himself looking at the beautiful smiling face of his new housemate and champion Sona, who stood facing him in a supermarket, showing the blonde cases of pork chops and slices of tuna. Pork or fish? Let's go with the pork. We can make some ramen with them, Naruto said, standing straight up with his hand holding the handlebar of the almost fully filled shopping cart he had been pushing behind Sona while escorting her. The Maven of the Strings had decided earlier that day that she would be cooking lunch for everyone at home, to return the kindness they had shown her since the moment she moved in to live with them. With Grafia being the only one who could win an argument with Sona, his mother had had no choice but to allow her to do what she wanted, before she dragged Naruto, who had been in the new gaming room playing League, out and told him to escort Sona to the local supermarket, not wanting to let the girl go alone while her son was at home playing video game all day. Ramen? You don't know what it is? He couldn't help but ask. I know what it is, Naruto. The blue-haired young woman gave him a playful glare. Though they don't eat ramen in Dalmatia, I have seen champions from Ionia have it during their meal times at the institute. Oh yeah, the Kali's favorite food is ramen, isn't it? Naruto asked, but Sona just answered him with a smile and a shrug of her shoulder, probably because she didn't know the rogue assassin that well. After Sona had chosen 3 cases of pork chops into the cart, the two then went on to buy some fresh vegetables. She seemed to have noticed he ate very little vegetables during meal times, because she then went on to explain to him how good then would be for his health for the entire duration of the selection. As expected of a high-class and noble lady from Dalmatia, one that had never been shy to express her feelings. So Sona, does Dalmatia have Naruto-kun? Hey Naruto-kun. Before he could finish his question, Naruto heard a familiar voice, and turned his head around to see Momo Hanakai pushing her cart toward him, while waving her hand around in the air. The white-haired young woman wasn't wearing her school uniform today. Her outfit consisted of a buttoned-up shirt and black skirt that stopped a little above her knees, with black and white socks and matching colored sneakers. In fact, this was probably the first time Naruto had seen Momo in casual clothing, and he had to admit that she looked amazing. Ah, Momo-chan. Good morning. Naruto greeted her brightly with his trademark grin as she came to stand next to him. Good morning to you too, Naruto-kun. I didn't think that I would. She then looked over to Sona when she realized that Naruto was with her, having an expression as she tried to recognize the tall blue-haired girl. She could swear that she had seen her somewhere before, but just couldn't place her fingers around it. So she decided to ask, and who is this? Naruto-kun, you are not on a date with her or anything like that, are you? She asked, coming to a conclusion almost instantly, while looking a little horrified. Date? Naruto repeated, making a funny face before quickly defending himself. No, I'm taking Sona out shopping for lunch, that's all. Sona. Momo then widened her eyes in realization. She could only think of one other person with the name Sona, who shared the facial features with the young woman she was looking at. Is this that Sona? The one from League of Legends? Yup. Sona, meet Momo Hanakai. She's a friend of mine at Kuo Academy, the school that I go to. Naruto finally decided to introduce the two, making Sona smile and shake hand with the other girl. Naruto really couldn't blame her for not being able to recognize Sona sooner, since she had her hair down from their usual twin tails, to avoid being mistaken as a cosplayer. Her beauty and voluptuous figure were both already attention-drawing enough. I will go over there to grab some onions. You stay here and talk to the girl, Naruto. With a playful smile, Sona walked away with Naruto wondering the reason why she suddenly decided to go off on her own, leaving him behind with Momo, who stared at him for a moment before asking. Breaking the silence between them. You can talk to her, can't you? Naruto nodded his head and explained with a grin. Yep, it's called telepathic link or something like that. Other summoners of the league need to cast a spell to create it with their champions, but because of my sacred gear, it comes to me naturally. Good to know that you are having a great time with your champions, Naruto-kun. Momo smiled at him as she leaned a bit to the side to look at Sona, who was carefully picking a handful of onions from a basket. Can't believe that I couldn't recognize her sooner, she. Before she could finish her sentence, a melodic ringtone was heard, and Momo reached into the pocket of her skirt to pull out a phone in a white case, which she then pointed at while looking at him, before moving it over to her ear, making Naruto nod his head in understanding. Excuse me for a second, Naruto-kun. Yes, Tsubaki-senpai. The vice president of the student council seemed to go straight to the point, because it didn't take long for the blonde to see his friend widening her eyes in surprise. The next day, Naruto found himself sitting on the chair by the window of the Occult Research Club's clubroom after school with the other members of the club, with the additions of Tsubaki Shinra, who had come with Sona to the meeting, being her queen and most trusted servant. Yumi was napping peacefully on his lap with book hovering a little behind him, and a nervous Ashiya sitting a little behind him on his right. He couldn't blame her, though, for feeling so anxious, but Ashiya wasn't the one he was worrying about the most at the moment. It was Kiba, who had a dangerous look on his face as he sat alone in a corner of the room, looking like he was about to go in and cut the guests down at any moment. On the sofa before them, Riaz and Sona were facing the two guests. The first of them was a young woman with chin-length blue hair with a dyed green fringe on the right side and brown eyes. Her attire consisted of a black, skin-tight, short-sleeve leotard with pauldrons, matching fingerless gloves that extended to her biceps, and thigh-high boots, all of which were adorned with straps. It was worn under a white-headed cloak with gold and blue accents, and finished with a crucifix around her neck. The second was also a young woman with violet eyes, wearing the same attire as her blue-haired friend with some minor differences. She had long chestnut hair that was tied into twin tails, each held with a blue ribbon. It appeared that one of them was Issei Hiyudu's childhood friend, and decided to come visit him yesterday, before requesting for this meeting with the two devils in charge of Kuo Town. From what Sona had informed them, the two exorcists gave Issei quite a startle, which was the reason why he had called Tsubaki, and in turn the vice president of the student council had contacted the other members of Sona's peerage to tell them what happened, leading Naruto to know about their arrival before his master was able to tell him about it. As I have already informed Sona Citri this morning, recently the Excalibur's holy swords that were held by the Vatican headquarters, Catholic Church, Protestant Church and Eastern Orthodox Church were stolen. Reyes didn't show how surprised she was to hear this, and instead chose to think the situation over. Beside her, Sona also had a calm expression as she spoke up. I assume that you have discovered the one responsible and managed to track them down to this location. Ravel determined. Reyes had also come to this conclusion. Did the church send you to her to retrieve the stolen Excaliburs? That is correct. The blue-haired exorcist nodded her head in confirmation. Irina and I, Zenobia, were sent by the Vatican to retrieve the stolen fragments. Akeno-san, there are more than one Excalibur. Naruto couldn't help but ask, leaning over to Akeno who sat next to him to ask. That's right, Naruto-kun. Akeno nodded before explaining a very long time ago in the past. Indeed there was only one Excalibur, but sometime during the war between the three factions, Excalibur was broken. The fragments were then collected and reforged into 7 pieces by the church. Yes, that is correct. Irina Shido, the one that seemed to be Seihido's childhood friend, heard Akeno's explanation, and replied to them Excalibur broke, and was reforged by our alchemist. However, our alchemy wasn't able to reform Excalibur completely, so they had to split it into 7 different swords. This is my Excalibur. The cloak opened as Irina moved her right arm and grabbed a small string tied around it. The string lengthened and wiggled as if it was alive, and then it changed shape, straightening and solidifying, before eventually morphing into a long katana. Ashi instantly grabbed Naruto's hand, and the blonde wasn't hesitant to squeeze back, because the sword's radiating holy aura was extremely terrifying. The moment Naruto looked at the sword, he could feel a cold feeling running down his spine. If this was only a fragment of the holy sword Excalibur, then he could only guess how powerful the true one was. This is Excalibur Mimic. Irina explained, it has the ability to change shape into anything I want it to, so it's really easy to carry it around. Unlike Zenobia, I can just carry it like this. The sword changed back into a string, which Irina then tied around her arm again. You shouldn't give away your Excalibur's power to a bunch of devils, Irina. Zenobia scolded her companion, only to soon realize that everyone was giving her expectant looks, including Irina. She sighed. I guess it can't be helped. This is my Excalibur. With that said, the young woman unwrapped her weapon, revealing what appeared to be a giant sword. Naruto could tell instantly just from the feelings he was having that this sword was so much more dangerous than Excalibur Mimic. It's called Excalibur Destruction. It was one of the 2 Excaliburs in possession of the Catholic Church. The Protestant Church and Eastern Orthodox Church also had 2 Excaliburs in their possession. There was a 7th Excalibur, but it was lost sometime after the war. Zenobia rewrapped the sword in its cloth, and Naruto could see the glowing symbols on the fabric. Since he had started learning runic magic from the Book of Summoner and a few others that Grafia had graciously enough to find for him, he could tell the runes were used to seal away its holy power, keeping devils from being affected by it, or others from sensing it. And you believe the 3 Excaliburs that were stolen are currently somewhere in Kuo? Rios stated. That is correct. We have managed to track the location of the people who stole the Excaliburs to this location. It seems that our territory is full of incidents like this lately. The Crimson Heiress continued as she looked over to her childhood friend, who shared the same responsibility as she did regarding Kuo Town. Do you know who stole the holy swords from you? We have reason to believe that they were stolen by members of the Grigori. So the Excaliburs were stolen by the Fallen Angels organization. Sona concluded as she tilted her glasses up. It seems like their members have been causing all kinds of problems recently, but it does sound like definitely something they would do. Devils aren't really interested in holy swords, since their very power can cause serious harm to us. But the Fallen Angels, yes, I'm sure they'd love to get their hands on something like that. We already have a suspect who we believe is the main culprit behind thefts. One of the Grigori leaders, Kakabiel. I see. Rias nodded her head slowly, before saying so. Theft was done by Kakabiel, one of the leaders of the Grigori, and a survivor of the Great War between the 3 factions. I suppose it only makes sense that someone like him would be behind thefts. I really didn't expect to hear a name from the Bible in a situation like this. Indeed. Only someone like Kakabiel has the capability to do something like that. Irina said, the moment the swords were stolen, we have sent several exorcists here in secret to uncover his location, but they kept getting killed. Rias and Sona both glared at them, looking as if they were offended. Exorcists were being sent into their territory, and the 2 didn't know anything about it until now. The heiress of the Citri was able to keep her cool, while her friend could do it too, albeit with some difficulties, since she was the one who had a shorter temper between the 2 of them. And what is it you want from us, the devils of this town? Are you here to request our assistance in this mission of yours? Zenobia raised an eyebrow at Ria's question. Simple. Nothing. We want nothing from you. Our request no, our demand is that you stay out of our affairs. The blue-haired girl said firmly, this situation is between us and the Fallen Angels. We do not want you to go out meddling with our business. You must be awfully worried if you're coming here and trying to make demands of us. Instead of being angered by it, Rhea said with a small smirk on her face, are you worried that one of us, or ever worse, everyone here might choose to side with the fallen angels, our more dangerous enemy? Or perhaps you're even thinking that we might already be in collaboration with those fallen angels. Zenobia, who had a firm look in her eyes, nodded her head in confirmation fearlessly. From a tactical point of view, it's not impossible. Our superiors don't trust devils and fallen angels. If holy swords were taken away from the side of God, then the devils would be pleased, correct? Fallen angels will also profit from this. For these reasons, it will not be strange for them to form an alliance with you. That is why we are giving you a warning. If you form an alliance with Kakabiel, the leader of the fallen angels, then we will eliminate you all. Even though you two are both the Demon King's little sisters, according to our boss. If you know that, then it means that you have many connections with the superiors of the church. Sona then paused for a second before stating firmly, so allow me to say this, on the behalf of my friend here, who is a high-class devil of the Gremory Devil House, sister of Circe's Lucifer, and her servants as well as mine, we will not form an alliance with the fallen angels, never. We will not do anything that will tarnish our leaders' names. Zenobia nodded in satisfaction. It seemed that she was convinced listening to what is good enough. Though, I have to warn you just in case Kakabiel is hiding in the town with 3 Excaliburs himself. Don't worry, we can take care of ourselves, Rhea said firmly. Now then, you mentioned each church still having 3 Excaliburs, yet I only see 2 with you. May I ask where that person is? They have that person on hold for this case. Yes, they are planning to protect the last Excalibur if Arena and I fail. Zenobia nodded her head in confirmation at her companion's work. So it's just the 2 of you? Sona asked in an astonished voice, raising an eyebrow behind her glasses. Do you want to retrieve the Excaliburs from one of the most cruel leaders of the fallen angels, of all people, with just 2 of you? Don't you think it is a bit unwise? Are you trying to die? Yes. I have the same opinion as Arena, but if it is possible, I don't want to die. Arena said with an innocent smile. So your belief in his doctrine is extreme as always. Riaz let out a sigh, before making that comment, making Zenobia glare at her. Don't speak ill of our beliefs, Riaz Gremory. Zenobia stated firmly our minimum goal is to get the Excaliburs of the fallen angels. To achieve this, it is alright for us to die. The only way to fight Excaliburs is with other Excaliburs. And will that be possible with just 2 of you? Well, we are not going to die in vain. Arena answered Sona's question fearlessly. You two look confident. Do you have a secret weapon that we don't know about? Perhaps, but we'll leave that to your imagination. After that, the 2 parties just looked at each other, and the conversation finally stopped. Arena and Zenobia then looked at each other and then stood up. So, excuse us now. I believe it's time for us to leave. So, you aren't going to use the tea? I can have my queen prepared some snacks for you as well, you know. Riaz told them, but Zenobia refused her offer with a hand. Sorry, but I do not need it. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience. See you. Arena apologized while waving at them with a hand, before she turned around to leave with her companion. Before the 2 of them could leave through the door, however, they both stopped and turned to look in the same direction, the direction of Ashia. When I came into this room, I had a thought that it might be. Zenobia began, are you the witch Ashia Argento? In all honesty, I never expected to find you in a place like this. Ashia trembled at that, and Naruto couldn't stop himself from glaring at the blue-haired exorcist. That word was very painful for Ashia. Arena noticed this and kept looking at Ashia. Eh? You're the former holy maiden. The one who says they have the power that can also heal devils and fallen angels, right? I heard that you were sent somewhere after being exiled, but I never thought that you had become a devil. Ashia did not know how to react to Arena and Zenobia, so Naruto decided to step in at that moment, handing Yuumi gently over to Kaneko. What about it then? Naruto asked in a cold tone, turning everyone's attention to him. Are you going to tell your superiors about her decisions? Oh, no, of course not. Zenobia shook her head in denial, before saying I am not going to tell my superiors that I saw her here, being a devil. There are a lot of people who still believe in the holy maiden Ashia. I don't want them to end up shocked. Though, I want to ask her if she still believes in our god. Even Arena had a surprised face at that. Zenobia. There is no way that she, who has become a devil, still believes in God. No, Arena. I can smell the belief in her. Zenobia turned to her companion and explained in a calm tone. It can be an abstract way of saying it, but I am sensitive to these kinds of things. There are people who betray the teachings and still feel at fault because they cannot forget the teachings. I can feel something similar coming from her. The blue-haired exorcist finished with sharp eyes, and Arena looked at Ashia even more with interested eyes. Is that true, Ashia-san? Do you still believe in God, even though you have turned into a devil? From behind Naruto, Ashia answered that question with a sad expression. I just can't put it aside. I believed in him all my life. Then that's it. You must be cut off by us right now. If it is now, I can cut you in the name of God. Even if you have any sin, our God will forgive you. Hearing this, Zenobia took the sword from the cloth and pointed it at Ashia. Naruto, his blood had been boiling for the past few seconds, couldn't stand still anymore. In an instant, he summoned Yane's Azakana demon blade, and used it to counter Zenobia's Excalibur destruction, at the same time unleashing its overwhelming demonic aura, to counter the sword's holy power. "Don't touch her," he said in a low tone, but everyone could feel the burning anger behind it. "You too seriously, I know your belief in your teaching is extreme, but don't you dare think that you can just come in here and threaten my servants like that." Ryuz stood up from her seat, and glared heatedly at the two exorcists, Zenobia specifically because she was the one who had directly threatened to kill Ashia, who now stood behind Naruto and the rest of her peerage, as they formed a protective line in front of her. Naruto was still glaring daggerly at Zenobia, and the girl did the same right back at him, and the others fearlessly, but only for a second, as her eyes started to widen with an expression of shock. Naruto, seeing an opening, used that opportunity to knock her sword back, stopping her from pointing it at Ashia, before pushing forward. But before he could advance anywhere, his face came into contact with a very familiar barrier, one that was created by his familiar Yumi. Naruto. Yumi addressed him worriedly with a paw raising in front of her. "What?" Naruto asked in confusion, looking at the cat floating in the air above Kaneko's head. "Lower your shield, Yumi," he told her, before finally noticing that everyone in the room was looking at him with the same expression Yumi and Zenobia were having. "What's wrong, YR?" He then looked at the mirror on the wall not too far from him, and finally saw it himself, looking right back at him with glowing yellow eyes, and something akin to solidified mist-like shadow coming from his whole body. "Wah." The blonde dropped his sword and uttered in confusion. He finally felt it. It was that feeling. Just like that night. But for some reason he felt fine. Normal. And so, for the first time in a very long time, the blonde opened a telepathic link that he had shut off completely, and thought that he would never have to open again, at least, in the near future. "Evelyn, are you doing this?" Naruto asked as he looked down at his hand, and saw his fingernails lengthening. At the same time, even more shadow was coming out of him, from everywhere around his body. "Doing what?" He could hear the demon's seductive voice from the back of his head. "Sorry Han, but let's talk later. I am a little bit busy at wait, what are you doing?" "What do you mean?" "You are taking my power." "Wait, so you are not doing this?" Naruto asked in confusion, before he looked up to see both Ryuz and Sona looking cautiously at him with their hands raised. "Wait, President, Sona Kaichu, I'm still myself. This is a bit weird, but I don't think I am being controlled by Evelyn or anything like that," he told them quickly before any of them could act, making Ryuz lower her hand, but Sona didn't look convinced, so she and Tsubaki kept their guards on. To be fair, this was their first time seeing Naruto with Evelyn's power, and the menacing feeling the darkness that had formed around was giving off wasn't really helping. "Are you sure, Naruto, you look just like that night?" Ryuz asked as she approached him carefully. "Yeah, I am sure," Naruto said as he looked at his hands, trying to stop the shadow from coming out of him. Just like what he had thought. Only time would tell what else could he do. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification, and also check out the other videos that I have created, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.